Of course, goes without saying that the growth of the luxury markets in India is thanks to rapid urbanization and strong economic growth. John Motley had once said, "Give me the luxuries of life and I'll dispense with the necessities." Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a luxurious conversation in this next session. May I please invite on stage the esteemed panelists of this session. Ms. Pushpa Bector, Senior Executive Director and Business Head, DLF Retail. DLF gave India its first luxury mall, DLF Emporio, in 2008. Please put your hands together and welcome her. May I please invite on stage Mr. Abhik Sanghi, Managing Director and Senior Partner, Boston Consulting Group and Chair of Practices at BCG India. Very, very warm welcome to you. Aye, please. May I please invite on stage Mr. Kapil Chopra, founder and CEO of the Postcard Hotel and founder of Easy Diner. The Postcard Hotel is a collection of intimate luxury hotels hidden in holiday destinations across India and the world. Kapil is also former president at the Oberoi. I also like to welcome on stage Alexis de Ducla, director of Mathieu Lustrerie, a luxury lighting company headquartered in the south of France. These lighting artworks adorn, among others, the Louvre in France and the Lakshmi Vilas Palace in Vadodara. And also, please welcome on stage Mr. Nikhil Sethi, partner, national head, FMCG, KPMG India. And of course, the esteemed moderator of this session, Veenu Sandhu, Senior Associate Editor, Business Standard, and the one who sat next to me as I traveled through 11th and 12th in a sleepy town called Meerut. Ladies and gentlemen, there's your panel, and I'm handing this over to Veenu.
Audible? Thank you so much, Gitika. We'll just plunge right in, and thank you so much for taking time out. You know, when we talk about India's development goals and when we talk about India as with an ambition to become a developed nation by 2047, luxury is not really an area that we speak about. And the question is to everybody over here, starting with Pushpa, and Kapil can take it, and you know, everybody, why we need to speak about luxury as one of the key players that needs to be talked about when we speak about India's developed nation goals. And if not, why that contrarian view?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us. Well, I think, you know, just like the start of all developing nations, I look at Singapore, I looked at Thailand. When, as an economy, they started developing, luxury was one of the most important elements. I would start with retail being one of the most important elements, and then, yes, luxury being a statement, because luxury is a state of mind. It shows that we are confident as consumers are evolving, and we are confident as a country to be able to experience the best that the world can give. And we are able to also look at products beyond what is immediately required. So we are really living our best version, which is why I think all developing countries, as they're moving towards developing further, including India, we should look at luxury very carefully. And it will become a yardstick. Now, coming to India as a market, Abhik, my friend here, has already declared that it's going to be, as a market, growing to a $200 billion market in the luxury services and product space. And in this, luxury retail, which I represent, will be almost $60 to $70 billion. Now, that's no small change. And that will really grow 3.5 times to where it is now. We think in DLF that you know, we are the OGs. We pioneered luxury with DLF Emporio and Chanakya. We do think that the time has come in terms of not just expanding, but also looking at how the products are changing. Today, we are in a unique space where in the luxury space, we just don't rely on international luxury brands, which we do have, but we also have a slew of Indian luxury brands who've also gone global. So I think we are uniquely positioned that way to look at, you know, we have a Sabyasachi, to a Manish, to a Gaurav Gupta, who are global names On one hand, we also are welcoming many brands within the LVMH portfolio, and we think that it's the play between the two that makes it a very interesting study.
Thank you for having us here, and thank you and congratulations to Business Standard for the 50th anniversary. So I think you see, I believe India is going through a very interesting phase, and India is aspirational. Whenever an economy goes through an aspirational phase, people keep on trading upwards. So, you know, better clothes, better hotels, better phones. We see it around us everywhere. So I believe the next couple of decades, as India grows more and more aspirational, anything that you build, and that's why I, kind of moved from a corporate job to an entrepreneurial role, because if you start building anything, pretty much in the world which is aspirational, which is kind of trading upwards, it will do well. I also believe that if you really think about it, whether in terms of goods, whether in terms of travel or in anything, even if you go back 10 years back, India was already winning the best hotels in the world. Yeah, so hotels have actually kind of kept that flag going high for a long time. So we are not really pioneers at the postcard to be building luxury hotels. I mean, India's already had some absolutely exceptional hotels. So I believe it's an absolutely great time to build. I also believe that India again has this great opportunity to show to the world of what the next generation of hotels could be. I think that opportunity is definitely there. And what's the good part means, we always look at every single government number. They talk about inbound tourists in India. Let me give you an interesting statistic. India gets 10 million inbound, yeah, and out of which 1 million is luxury, 9 million is basically traffic moving up and down. But Indians do 2.3 billion domestic trips a year. A domestic trip is me taking a bus to Bombay or taking a flight to Bombay. That's a domestic trip for everybody. So out of this 2.3 billion domestic trips, even if I say 99% of them are not in the luxury segment, that still leaves 23 million trips. That's why when we talk about 1 million to 23 million, and you talk about hotels in India doing so well, airport travel is doing so well, because domestic consumption is booming. It's an aspirational young country, really willing to travel. And I think that's the great opportunity. Also, if it's luxury, then luxury because of the good margins that it operates at, which people generally, kind of scoff at sometimes, but because of the good margins it operates at, also can create a lot of vibrant communities where it operates, which actually helps. I mean, it's a GDP roller coaster if you can get on it, and if you can do it properly, and that's the way that we look at it.
So I'm going to actually start with a contrarian point of view, or partly contrarian. I think, India, if one looks at it, to talk about a 1.4 billion at whatever $2,500 US per cap is the wrong way to think about it. There is the equivalent of a Mexico and in Indonesia and a sub-Saharan Africa, all three of them coexisting at the same time. That's point number one. So, and I think it is not that India's development is going to be defined by luxury, but I think many times the debate which ends up happening, or the discussion ends up happening, is the isolation. I think for the next 2 decades or 3 decades, it's going to be a question of and. So it's not agriculture or manufacturing or services, it's agriculture and manufacturing and services. I think we are going to see growth in luxury, we are going to see growth in the middle, and we are going to see growth in the mass. So it's coexistence of all three. I think the importance, to my mind, is driven by 3 facts. Number one, if one looks at true luxury, it actually is skill and manpower intensive, right? So if you look at, some of the luxury traditions of India, whether it's in terms of Kanjivaram saris or jewelry, or if you look at the European traditions, they are actually manpower intensive. And as we think about, job creation, employment, of course we'll have industry, but we'll also have craft and skills. We'll also have services, as Kapil was saying. So I think just from a perspective of skills and in terms of job creation, this could be one big element to keep in mind, not only from a perspective of consumption. I think the second piece, I would say, in terms of what we see in luxury, at least happening globally, is there is a move away from conspicuous consumption to conscious consumption, and it's manifesting itself in different ways. You know, the youth actually being a part of it, and they're being more conscious about, you know, the impact which it's having. The second-hand economy, or pre-loved, or whatever one may call it, you know, that comes into play, and therefore the impact which ends up happening is not just a one-step, but a two-step process which is there. So I think that's the other element to keep in mind in terms of, you know, the luxury. And third, and you know, we were just having a discussion just before this, you know, I'm always skeptical about numbers which get, you know, thrown about in terms of market size, because it depends on the definition. So if I look at luxury itself, if you define it today, one could say it is, you know, 3.5, 3.7 billion. If you start including a set of categories, it becomes 8, 9. If you include luxury phones and vehicles, then it becomes 3 times that size. You know, Apple India today's sale is actually more than Hindustan Lever, right? So if you think about it, you know, there depends on how you define it, the size actually ends up varying. But the one interesting example, and just as a question to pose, is if one looks at in many of the luxury categories, the value is captured by the brand. And I think one aspiration which should be there is, can we actually have brands in luxury which are created in India, so that a large part of the value is actually captured by India?
Thanks. So I would actually largely agree with a lot of what the panelists have said. Maybe a couple of points to add. I think one to me is that looking at luxury market size in a way is a lag metric as we look at how India grows out. And therefore, if this is a metric that is large, if this is a metric that is because people have traded up, it's evidence for us that, you know, India is premiumizing, India is growing, we're on the path of being developed. The second point is really that the share of mind of luxury is actually often much larger than the share of wallet. And as other countries, other people sort of look at us, having a very strong, vibrant luxury market, which is both a domestic consumption market and, like Abhik said, Indian brands which actually have a very strong global play, allow us to actually have a much larger share of mind, and therefore we are viewed as a lot more developed. And the third is that this is an industry that drives a lot of influence, and therefore, at least in the current stage, as we are developing, with especially all the conversation we are having around sustainability and consciousness, and growth, unfortunately, is sort of linked very directly to consumption. Luxury can play a very interesting inflection role to say that how can we sort of redefine the way we consume and actually solve a lot of the growth conundrum for companies to say that I need to grow, but can I grow by dematerializing, or can I grow by premiumizing? So these are probably the 3 points I'd add.
I'm coming to you last for a reason, because, you know, you're from France and you're representing some French luxury home decor brands in India, and, you know, France is synonymous with luxury, and we would really want to hear what you have to say about, you know, the importance of luxury.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. No, I agree mostly with everything that has been said before, but what I feel is that the Indian market has evolved extremely rapidly in the past 20 years that I've been working here. I can say that 20 years ago, just the awareness of global luxury brands was hardly there. Then 10 years ago, suddenly everybody in interiors wanted an Italian interior. So there were like 5 or 10 brands, and everybody wanted the same brands. And just a few years later now, for the past 2-3 years, we see that the self-confidence of the customer has really completely changed. Nobody is chasing a brand because it's from France, or because it's from Italy, or because it's from here or there. People are looking for quality. People are looking to enjoy something they like. People are collecting. And I feel this is a much more interesting market, because this is because of self-confidence. And I think I would tend to agree with what has been said before. In my opinion, the next Chanel will be from India. I am 100% sure.
When? How soon?
In the next less than 10 years, I would say 5 years, you would have the biggest luxury brands, because India has always been a country of luxury. As you said, luxury is about artisanship. It's about time spent. It's about art. And India has always had that. It's inherent. It's part of the culture. But now what we lacked was investment and a vision. And I think that's what has been developed in the past few years. People are putting money in Indian brand, and people are believing. And I was recently with Gaurav Gupta, who was saying, I don't need to design a sari to be an Indian fashion designer. And I like that, because he's Indian and he's in luxury, he's going to design what he feels is India today. And this is what, if Coco Chanel had said, I can only design corsets because they are French, then we would never have had fashion in France. So I think we are on the right path, and I'm very, very excited to be part of this journey in India.
You know, one of the things that we talked about is speaking both about consumption, Indian consumer becoming, luxury consumer becoming more evolved, and Indian brands also stepping out and finding a global presence, which is still like, you know, a little less. What would it take to scale that up where, you know, you have recognizable brands from India, globally, internationally recognizable brands from India? Considering that luxury is a very slow market, it, you know, takes time to build, to grow. Some of the brands are like, you know, close to a century old. You know, what would it take to do that, have that kind of an edge?
I would say...
and the question is open to everybody.
Yeah,
please.
I'll just say one small word. I would say that for me, it's the vision. The world is waiting for India to come on the stage. I don't think every day or every week at least I get a call from 1 or 2 brands who are wanting to come into India, who are wanting me to represent them. And everybody, yes, last week we had an event with over 30 French brands who are coming for the first time to India. So the same way the brands want to come into India, I think the world is waiting for India. It just needs someone who's going to dare to do it, I think.
Do we undersell luxury, like, you know?
You know, in fact, I think COVID and post-COVID, an interesting trend has started, which is corporate houses understanding the power of Indian brands, and they are kind of funding without impacting the design sensibilities or influencing the design sensibilities. They are just giving financial support and, may I say, a certain structure and order to running the business and looking at it globally. And that's a trend that is going to really stand in good stead for us, because if Sabyasachi, just post-COVID, opened in New York and he's opened in Dubai, the same I see with Manish or with all the others, you know, Gaurav is going to open something in France. So all these are indicators that the right kind of funding and the right kind of backing has started for the Indian luxury to go global, as much as global luxury to come to India. It's a symbiotic process that one sees, and I think the journey has just started with the right backing. I don't see why we in India cannot have the next Coco Chanel. We probably are well on the road to it. And also the fact that, you know, we as a country, we are so, shall I say, proud as a country on holding on to our own craftsmanship and culture. You know, it was telling to see Dior recognizing the Chanakya School of Art and creating the Dior show and the collection here at the Gateway. It shows that globally, those luxury brands are also equally proud of the Indian craftsmanship and are ready to collaborate. These are all good bodings for the future.
So our entire thesis is exactly based on what he's saying, that we need to create, means we think we're trying to create the Chanel of hotels. Yeah. So I totally agree with him. When I decided to quit up my job at the Oberoi, the idea was that just think about it, that and with due respect to every single hotel player in India, Taj's been around for 120 years, Oberoi's been around for 80 years, but how many international hotels have we put up? Think 2027, the third largest outbound market in the world is going to be from India. Yeah. So in the next 4 years, if it's going to be the third largest outbound country in the world with travel going, and by 2040 they say even #1 in the world, then where is the next Indian brand in Paris, in London, in Rome, in Scotland, in the Highlands? We just drink so much whiskey, but we're not in the whiskey country. In France, in Burgundy, in Bordeaux, everywhere. And so when we started the Postcard Hotel, the idea was to take Indian hospitality everywhere globally, but start with India first. And that's what we started, and with authenticity. Like think about it, and with all due respect, the French are so proud of their culture and heritage. Yeah? Think about, why does Air India serve croissants? The croissant is not an Indian bread. Nobody, including the richest people in India, wake up in India and make a croissant. Making a croissant is a tough job if you ever worked in a hotel kitchen. Yeah, India has 128 indigenous varieties of breads, but none of our airlines serve it. Most of our hotel breakfasts don't serve it. So we said, unless we open in Pondicherry, which has got a very significant French influence, we'll never serve croissants at the Postcard Hotel. We will find a bread from the region and we'll serve it. And I think that, in a way, we have to celebrate our own culture and our heritage. I think that's what it takes, because there was a very good question you asked, what will it take? It will take phenomenal amount of intent. It will take phenomenal amount of innovation. It will take phenomenal amount of passion, commitment, not giving up to build a brand. Building a brand is a multi-generational game. It's sometimes Coco Chanel's no longer there. But it's a multi-generational game. So you've got to think really long-term. Your capital raising has to be really long-term. You've got to be true to the brand, and there'll be enough distractions along the way. It takes time to build a great brand. And I think that is what it will take. But if you build it with the right intent, it will come through. One is, he spoke very nicely about India being, always the Rajas and the Maharajas and the palaces. But again, taking it out to international markets is not going to be easy. We were talking about opening hotels in these great developments in Saudi Arabia, for example, and they're still getting used to India. So we think of it quite a lot, but in a lot of countries, still getting used to India. He spoke about getting 30 brands to India. Means imagine most of them sometimes would be there on their first visit, actually. Yeah, correct? So it takes time, and if you can take time, build. I think, like I said earlier, it's the best time to build. It's the best time to stay true to what this country is all about. Means we still don't even have one good hotel in the Northeast. Think about that. Yeah, and it's such a scenic area. It's got such political importance now, considering what's going on in the world. But we don't have one good hotel in the Northeast. So why not? So build it. They will come. We've not. Sri Lanka, for example, has taken the tea story. The best teas are from Sri Lanka. Incorrect. The best teas are from Assam and Darjeeling. We've just not sold our teas well enough. And we haven't showcased our tea well enough. Sri Lanka, in spite of the economic crisis, still sells hotels on the tea trail at $1,000 a night. So I think it's the moment we get very proud of what we are building, which I think it's coming. I think the next Indian super luxury hotel brand or retail brand or fashion brand would be there.
So we need to stop underselling. Would you want to come in?
So I think just two things I think we should take. I think, first of all, it'll take storytelling. We hire a lot of bright people from, the IITs, IIMs. I've had the opportunity to hire from, Harvard and Stanford as well. I always say, in a 5 to 7 minute interaction, the folks from Harvard and Stanford will do much better than IITs and IIMs. But if you spend 45 minutes, you see the difference, right? So I think what will it take is building on what Kapil had said. I think it's about not only underselling, but actually having the conviction, confidence. And the place I would say very different what India is today than 20 years back is today, if you talk to a 25-year-old, he or she is much more confident than I was 25 years back. So I have much greater faith in the 25 years of today, olds of today, to be able to tell that story. The second, and I'm just going to challenge one element. I think if one looks at luxury, which is there, we are still retaining the old idea of luxury. Today, I think there is a lot which actually takes the hardware and software together. India actually has a capability in some of the elements on hardware. the equivalent of the next iPhone or a service is going to be impacted by software. Why don't we integrate that together? Because the luxury of 2047 or 2035 is not going to be only about the jewelry or the craft. So getting parts of technical skills, excellence, engineering, and so on, I think that's important. And finally, while I do agree that it takes time, I just leave one thing. The first $1 trillion economy for India took 60 plus years. The next $1 trillion took 7 years. The next took 3 years. India is not unique. The same thing happened for China. The same thing happened for US. So, once you get to a certain scale as an economy or as a company, going to the next and the next and next, the first 5 hotels to open globally or the first brand to open, store to open is difficult. The next is easier. And here, I think one brand which, I don't know if anybody has heard of this thing called Araku coffee.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So Araku actually is a region in south of India which actually produces great coffee. And there's actually the Nandi Foundation and others actually have, got it to a point where, like Amul, for every rupee which is sold, the farmer actually gets much more than what one would get naturally. The first store that Araku opened was in Paris Champs-Élysées. They said, we are not going to open in Bombay or Bangalore. We are going to open it in Champs-Élysées because we are wanting to create an Indian luxury brand. And how do we make sure that we have many more of those which actually have the linkage with the farmer or the artisan, and we start out with pride?
Maybe just one point to add. If we look at a lot of categories that the group has spoken about, many of these are sort of one-time bespoke consumption categories, right? I go for a holiday once, I buy a lehenga once. But one of the things that you notice, say, in the developed markets is that a lot of luxury products have made it to the day-to-day. Of course, if we expand definition to iPhones, etc., it is part of our day-to-day. But if you look at a lot of the Indian brands, I think a sustained investment in, or even working with price points, because you don't have to be on global price points. Just being at very premium price points in India would be luxury for India in some form or shape. And having products there where you can consume it almost on a daily basis, on a regular basis, is also another big unlock that we should start looking at.
Is the Indianization of international luxury brands, for instance, is it an area of concern? For instance, like, Bulgari came out with a Mangal Sutra, something that, Indian artisans do, or they came up with a Kada. So is that an area, should Indian artists, Indian people engaged or building Indian luxury brands, would that be, or is it like a hat tip to them? What? Yes, please. Pushpa.
Well, I think otherwise. Actually, the reason why recently the Bulgari Worldwide CEO was there and we were interacting, the reason why they are looking at it is because the global Indians who are outside, they are extremely wealthy, quite a few of them, and they're tapping into that market, and they're also tapping into the Indian market. So it's not as if they're only tapping into the Indian market. However, there are quite a few brands, like Louis Vuitton launched a Rani Pink collection of shoes specifically for the Indian wedding wear. Now that is something which is tapping into the Indian market, and this is going to continue. There will be product types which will be focused on the Indian market, limited editions, and the Indian wedding market, as you know, is phenomenally large. All these international brands are understanding the power of that, and branded jewelry is here to stay now. The reason is because the millennials have started shopping. Gen Zers and millennials have started shopping luxury. And from a jewelry point of view, there is a small trend that has begun, which is, why get into only the traditional jewelers? I would like to have a branded jewelry piece. So I think there is a multiple reason why these trends are beginning and why global brands are also launching Indian collections, maybe specific and maybe not, but I don't see it to be a reason to worry. In fact, I think it'll only expand the market.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's more a proof that the brands are very much interested in India and in the Indian market and in the Indian consumer. But I think it's also important for the brands who are doing this to really develop collaborations and not to do it just as a marketing thing. I think there are beautiful collaborations that are being done. And as we said before, most of the fashion brands and most of the brands in general have a part of their productions in India. And I think it would be interesting in those collaboration that the Indian artisan and the Indian part is also as equally a part. I mean, is equally shown and advertised.
One question to you, Alexis. Like among your clientele, you have the Ambanis, you have the Piramals, and you have Tarun Tehlianis.
You name them.
Name them? Okay, fine. And also, from what I know, is I think I'm correct that one of the among the chandeliers that were there at Anant Ambani and Radhika Merchant's pre-wedding celebration, Jamnagar, were the ones that came from your company. But so these are people that you would expect to indulge in luxury. But is that also shifting? Is a new class of luxury consumers emerging? And how big is that?
Absolutely. It's boomed a lot. I mean, till about 5 years ago, anyone in this room could name my clients because they are just the top people that you would expect would be able to spend so much on their interiors. And now, in the past, I would say 3 to 4 years, we have completely anonymous people who are very well informed in what they want. My strategy, because I sell French craft, is to also travel in France with my clients and get them to know why it's interesting to get something French rather than that they won't get anywhere else. What do we do well? And I'm extremely surprised by the number of projects that we've had in the past 2 years, and it keeps increasing. Yeah. So I would say yes. Now the number of clients is really increasing, which is a good thing.
Technology. How important is technology in this question to a big question to Kapil, and also to Nikhil? How important is technology? Will it be a challenge? Will it be in the luxury sphere, or will it present opportunities, and in what way?
So I think from a data point of view, fantastic. You can use technology. At the Postcard Hotel, we say, just switch off your phone, please. Just soak in the environment, soak in the natural thing that you are. We are generally in beaches and wildlife reserves, in tea, wine estates. So means just keep your phone aside. But yeah, on the backbone, it's extremely critical. It's very important. There was a very important point made here, which was that this one-time consumption. Our idea is that you should take a holiday every 3 months, even if it's for 2 days. So it's periodic consumption, and we want to keep on opening a new hotel every 3 months. I think one of the things that never really happened earlier. So we're kind of working with construction techniques which can help us open in every 3 months. Authentic, really, India has phenomenal construction techniques also. So we're kind of exploring that across the board. But the whole idea is to keep it going. Data analytics is at a totally different level because it's companies of the new generation. But from a technology perspective at the hotel, I'm just saying, just leave your phone behind, please. I would love for, so I remember we opened a hotel in Goa in the forest, okay, totally sustainable, very nice. And signal was a big problem because there was no phone signal. So everybody used to complain. So at reservation stage, we used to tell them, sir, if you've got a meeting, then don't come and stay here, please. Go somewhere else, because out here, signals will go and come. So be mindful of that. In Gir, we say, hear a lion's roar, then be on your phone. So yeah, so when you're in the hotels, don't use it. At the back end, we guys are using it to make sure you keep on coming back.
So just one quick add. I think many times when we say technology, we refer to the internet or data. My only point is, I think that is a huge amplifier for any kind of a business. I would just say, whether it's looking at sustainable technologies, whether it's biomedical and so on and so forth, I think there are other elements of technology which also can be huge enablers, to everything that we're talking about.
I would agree. I think the regular stuff for most industries tends to work here. It's a high influence driven industry. So when you look technology as social media, it really drives demand. It's also a place where the physical formats of consumption are much fewer than the demand, and therefore e-commerce can bridge a lot of the access gap. So I think in those places, if you sort of use technology interestingly, I was hearing this about one of the jewelry companies, which is saying that, you know, you can't have a lot of people coming into us, but can we sort of imbibe the old tradition of taking jewelry to your home and do a booking and so on and so forth? And that sort of not only created access, but also curated a very new luxury, bespoke at-home experience. So those are very interesting ways in which you can use technology to.
So there's an amalgamation. The way it used to happen in the old days that, you know, when somebody would come and like he would like show you these other like stuff, you can pick it up, come to your house and all of that. All right. Quick class because we're really out of time and I'm sorry we will not be able to take any questions, but we can take it offline. Quick last closing remarks. If there are any challenges, starting with you, Alexis, and what would you see and see those challenges as, and what that India might need to tide over in the luxury space, and then we'll just.
Right now, I don't see any challenges. On our side, I see that one of the challenges that used to be was that when you build a house for interiors, you rely a lot on an architect. And many of the, even in hotels, of the luxury properties in India were made by architects from abroad. And now we're very happy to see this changing. This was a big hurdle, and this is changing a lot now. And I mean, the house in Gujarat that you mentioned earlier has been made by an Indian architect. And I feel that this is amazing to have enablers like that in the market. And I'm hoping to see more of this happening.
Well, the challenge is also an opportunity for us. I think there is a lack of good supply because luxury needs the best of location from a retail point of view. It needs expanse and it needs the best locations. And it's not easy to build luxury zones and malls. So I do think that, you know, the challenge is how quickly are we able to build it out. That would be a challenge here.
So hotels are always tough to build. There is something or the other happening. We've taken governments to court. We've done every single thing possible. So you know, I'm just saying that if you're building, like I said earlier, if you're building something, if you've got an intergenerational view on it, focus on self-sufficiency. So yeah, just keep on building on your own, and there will always be challenges. Means that's the nature of the business that all of us are trying to do. So just focus on self-sufficiency. I mean, it's part of life.
You know, Adam Smith talked about land, labor, and capital as the three factors of production. Capital, I definitely don't see as a constraint. Land selectively, which is there, and actually labor is the place which actually can be a competitive advantage.
But just end by saying that, you know, sustainability has become very important. And I think luxury brands are probably the only ones who have the ability to get sustainable and charge a premium for it, right? All the others don't have the luxury of charging a premium. And therefore, to do this and really sort of portray themselves as sustainable brands, I think is a big challenge.
All right. Thank you so much. And really, and apologies for the delay that happened. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the esteemed panelists. Please come together for a group photograph, and thank you to the moderator for steering this session.